Hello, wonderful people. Um, Today I'm actually recording inside. If you watched the other videos, they were outside, and I would like to continue them, even though if the audio quality is not the best. I enjoy making videos on a walk in the forest. I think it's very healing. And I felt inspired to actually share my journey um, through healing through emotional neglect. Healing is a process. It's not like, oh, I'm fully healed, but I do feel like it's time to share my story and we can expand upon it because I feel there is an epidemic of emotional neglect on this world. And I didn't even know that was actually a thing. Because when we think about abuse in any way, it can be physical abuse, sexual abuse, but I don't think people really talk about verbal or emotional abuse as much because it's insidious, right? We don't really see it, but the effects are real. And there's always this part of me that wants to diminish what happened during my childhood, but when I look at myself and see why, like, how did CPTSD just didn't come? I wasn't like born with it. Right? It was nurtured, and of course, I'm speaking from undiagnosed type or self-diagnosed, but um, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really matter what we call it. We could say the core wound, if that resonates more, but let's say core wound, because, like I said, I developed this very awful inner critic that was vicious. I never felt good enough. I always felt like I was in this never-ending hamster wheel of trying to prove my worth, and if I fell short, I'd berate myself into submission. Really, it was my head was not a good place to be around most of the time. Most of the time, when I was working on through the course and everything, it was getting better and better, but still, like this core stuff kept coming up. I was unconscious of it because I didn't realize I was emotionally neglected as a child. And it's hard to say that out loud, but the more I speak my truth, the more I've been telling others, people resonate with that, and I think it's time to speak up against it because if I could help someone realize what's going in their lives, and they could get help um, sooner. That's all what the Course in Miracles is. The teacher's manual, right, is about saving time, right? Saving time, right? 'Cause I wish, I had this information a lot sooner, like 10, 11, or actually, as soon as possible, because I had, no idea. Because when we're in this toxic environment, we think it's normal. Not to villainize my parents. I realize my parents did a lot of things just unconsciously. Like, for example, I went to Catholic school and I got all this, what do you call it, like confirmation and all this. Even though my parents themselves didn't go to church or really care about it, it's just something you did as, being Polish, like being Catholic is part of the Polish identity. I understand it, but, you know, um, or even trying to teach me Polish. Um, they signed me up, or signed my brother and I to Polish school on Saturdays in the morning, 9 to 12. Not real, I don't know. We talk about it from time to time, but um, that the school wasn't to teach me the language. It was just school in Polish, which I didn't really know. So it was very boring and say, I said it torturous. So it was a torture because it was not fun at all, and I wasn't learning anything. So I wasn't learning the language. I was just wasting my time, wasting my weekends, and no matter how many times I'd protest, be like, "Oh well, we signed you up. You got to go." Also a form of emotional neglect, right? As I was talking about this with someone else in my healthy gamer group, he was signed up for soccer and he was bullied there. And he just went to his parents like, "Mom, Dad, I'm being bullied and I don't like this. I don't like playing soccer in this team. Can I please stop?" And they're like, "Well, we signed you up. You just got to do it." You know, um, I know, and I can hear some voices like, "Oh, that's just how life is," but it doesn't have to be that way. And like I was saying about the never-ending hamster wheel. It just felt like no matter what I did, it was never good enough, you know. And because what the inner critic wants, it wants perfection, because it feels like perfectionism is safety, right? But it's also an illusion. And during my trials and tribulations of just having a normal life, I just had no compassion for myself. It was so much easier to love others and have compassion and hold grace and space for other people, but for myself, it was just some kind of arduous, impossible task. And when I was doing all this inner work, especially when I started doing the Course in Miracles workbook, and I was going into the shadow work, I was using AI. This one by also Course in Miracles channel. Sorry, but I know his name is Boris. He made this AI to talk directly with the Course in Miracles. Like, it's called the Holy Mirror, and I just let all my grievances out, grievance after grievance after grievance. And I think also everything is connected, like with healthy gamer therapy, talking to AI, lifting these grievances. I realized I had complex PTSD, which is, if you guys don't know, so PTSD is like one traumatic event. Complex PTSD is like your life was full of trauma. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be just like a physical abuse, or it could also be emotional if both parents are involved, which mine were. Right, not consciously, of course. Everything I believe was done on an unconscious level, just because my parents were both emotionally immature. And what I mean by that is, they had no way of soothing their own emotions, and they would just explode with anger on both my brother and I. I always felt like I was walking on eggshells when I was around them, because I would never know when they would blow up. And that's when I did self-research on myself, like looking into myself, and I realized I had disorganized attachment style. If you don't know, the attachment styles is how you relate to others, and I had it was like fearful, avoidant, whatever it's, or disorganized, because I was looking for love, but also deeply afraid of it. Because growing up, I didn't know if I would get affection or I would get vitriol. There was no rhyme or reason for it, I wrote down some examples. The trauma, we could also reframe it as like heightened emotional experience. So, because I think it also lets the weight off it, because I think trauma is a very loaded word. But I'll give you guys examples just because this. I just don't know how to say it, but emotional abuse, verbal abuse, like especially to young children. This is because I'm thinking about, it just wasn't right. This is what I'm trying to say, guys, that it wasn't right. And if something like this happened to you guys, just look at talking in the comments. So I have this memory about like, I don't know, 9, 8, maybe 10, I think 10 years old. So like I've said a few times, I'm Polish American, meaning that both my parents are Polish, and Polish and English are spoken in my household. And sometimes, mistakes would happen. Because my parents, mostly my mom, but my dad would sometimes speak to us in Polish, and he's like, "O, czy macie jakiś klej?" And klej in Polish can be like glue, or I thought in English could be like clay, just like the thing you use in art class. I thought he meant glue, and so I didn't see any glue, but there was clay, like normal clay for art. And he found that clay, and he went up to me or was about to leave, and he very loud, he's like, and he slammed the door. And you can see you know, and I would just remember crying and being alone, and you know, that sucks, man. That's the thing. I just um, where and I didn't have compassion. I thought like, oh, you know, toughen up, you know, suck it up, buttercup. Same with being spanked as a child. You know, I just, oh, like I got spanked. I turned out fine. No. um, I watched a video recently, and psychologists talked about like negative, um, what do you call it, consequences of spanking your child, and it's such an outdated form, and a lot of people said that, well, they don't remember why they were spanked, but they remember the feeling, right? And I, you know, I'm not a parent. I'm probably will never be a parent, but I hoped, you know, I would never lay my hand on a child. I understand, you know, parenting can be tough, but I feel like there's so many better ways, you know, to discipline your child than to spank them. You know, of course, you know, in this case was, you know, yelling, uh, you know, over such a simple thing, you know, especially there was no compassion that, well, a young child can be confused because of, you know, two languages, right? And this inner voice that would, over small mistakes like that, would, like, especially with Polish, if I made a mistake with Polish, it'd rake me over the coals, and you can understand how, why, I didn't want to learn Polish. Also, what emotional neglect can be is what you didn't receive, and that's something like a mind fuck right there that I had no idea. You know, it could be like what you should have gotten but you didn't get, and for me, you know, just soothing, or just being okay with, you know, like if I came out with a negative emotion, or it would never be like, oh, Cahir, what's wrong? Like, let me help you out. Nope, no. I'll give you guys an example that I had to really work on. This is the thing, like, don't judge whatever memories come up, because I used to judge myself like, oh, it happened so many years ago. If it's in your consciousness, if it's in your awareness, and you're still feeling emotional charge, it just means like, hey, this is something we need to look at. That's it, just feedback. But I'll share this one. So I got rejected for the first time in my life in middle school. Let's call her Jenny. Not even rejected, like insulted. I had this crush on this girl, Jenny, and I was wearing this tight shirt, and I don't know, maybe it says sweaty day. It doesn't matter, but she took it upon herself to say, "Oh, Cahir, you smell." But like, you know, my young, you know, brain, 14, I think I was 14 at the time, took that really to heart throughout the whole day. I think it was towards the end of the day, and my mom picked me up from school, and she could see just I was feeling bad, and then she's like, "Is it a boy or a girl that made you feel?" I actually lied. I said, "Oh, it was a boy," but I think she could smell I was lying or something. I don't know, but she chose to say, "You're not good with girls, aren't you?" Oh, thank you, Mamoshu. Thank you so much. That was so helpful, you know. Obviously, I've never talked about it, but I had to talk during Healthy Gamer about it a few times, because I feel like that's one of the core wounds, you know, just, you know, not feeling safe to talk to your parents about challenges. Something I also had to, like, the first, like, because I had, you know, some therapy before. Actually, I had like a coach, and when I was like 21, and it was for like this website, like mentoring.com or something, and it was the first time in my life, you know, I was 21, 22, that I felt safe talking about my challenges. You know, that sucks, man. That sucks. I don't know what else to say, you know, but I don't want to be disempowered about it. I want to say empowering way that if you're going through it, it's okay, you know, to share your challenges with other people, and I think it's necessary, actually. Like, we're not meant to do it alone, and I think this is something I had to deal with, like being a lone wolf, like dealing with my challenges just by myself, and you can see how hard it is. Yeah, but saying there's always a choice, and what I wrote down here is perfect love casts out fear. It's of course miracles. Perfect love casts out fear. It's not to villainize or demonize anybody in the story, because all sin is lack of love, right? But realizing also, what happened to me was not okay. What happened to me was not okay. And if someone says otherwise, I disagree. I disagree. So long I've held this belief, like, suck it up, buttercup. Just tough it out. That's tough love. There's no such thing as tough love. No, not in the Course in Miracles. No. And maybe many people will subscribe to tough love. I understand that. But I see how tough love worked on me, and the opposite effect, happened. Like, I think my parents wanted to instill, like, self-reliance or being, empowered. But I had such a low self-concept of myself because of all this, I just never felt supported, Well, never is a strong word, but at least in my conscious awareness, I never felt safe to go with my parents to about anything. And when I went on the subreddit about emotional immature parents, a lot of people had the same thing. And to say it doesn't have an effect would be a disservice. And the Course in Miracles says, the past is over, it affects me not. I understand it, and it's almost like I'm talking about somebody else, because in some ways I am. But the reason I'm telling you guys this, because it does get better, and it doesn't have to define you. Not only that, just for me, I look at it as my strength, because I had to go so much into the negative mind to understand its miscreations. And my mission now of these podcasts and videos is to help somebody on that journey that is dealing with the miscreations of the mind, these really horrendous, fearful images in their mind, and to say, wake up and let go. I know it could be tough. It could be tougher for other people, but just saying that there is a way. And I just want to say to never diminish what you went through, but the empowering narrative is to revise. Neville Goddard shows about going back in your memory and revising the memory. I think there's other psychological terms for that, but I actually went back into that memory when Mama said, "You're not good with girls," and I imagined the way I would have, like, what I wanted to have happened, and she said, "It's okay, you liked her." She said something mean, but that doesn't define you. You're a champion. I love you no matter what. I love you no matter what. And I imagine her playing a song on the radio to get me out of this, depressive state. It was quite healing, And the thing is to do that with all the memories, but also start treating myself the way I want to be treated, right? And reparenting myself. That's all CPTSD is, right? About reparenting, instead of wallowing in these memories or in the feelings, is to actually heal them. Yeah, because basically what I just also said, the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. And realizing I was not treated the way I wanted to be treated. It's not about being entitled to be like, I demand a bunch of stuff. I want my Xbox. It's about just common respect. And I felt like I didn't have that growing up, and and I tolerated a lot of misbehavior from other people because of that. And I see in Healthy Gamer how the member I talked about as well, how he was tolerating a lot of mistreatment as well because of this emotional neglect. But once we become aware of it, we have a choice to continue it or not to. Yes, you have the power to end the cycle within you, right? This is something I want to really reiterate, because I thought this tyrannical voice is going to run the show for my whole life. I think Pete Walker talks about it, how I feel like these states of being feel like they last forever. Because as a child, right, you feel like these negative states last forever, abandonment lasts forever, but it doesn't, Everything takes its course, right? And also realizing the inner voice was not made out of malice. It was just a defense mechanism, right? It wanted to keep us safe from being harmed again, right? But now it's time to gently let it go, say thank you. I understand you served your purpose, but no more. In the book, he also says about getting angry. That could also work. For me, what's worked is seeing the insanity of it all. Right, that we think this shame and this guilt will serve us in some way. They'll keep us in line. But we're not donkeys. We're not here to be whipped into shape. No, we're these divine beings here, to live joy beyond measure. Right? And for me, whipping myself that's not in the divine plan. I don't know about you. I think it's time to put the whip aside. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you are good enough. Because you are as perfect as God created you, always, right? This is a fact, right? This is truth with a capital T, something that could be never changed, right? And I know how hard it is to believe that sometimes, but if you understand, this is a divine truth that could never be changed, no matter how you're feeling at the moment. And you can take steps towards that light. Even this, it takes the smallest willingness, right, to get that trajectory started, Because I know how hard it is out there. I know how hard it could be when you're in the trenches of the ego mind. But like I said, we always have that choice to listen to the voice of God or the voice of the ego. All right, I hope that helps somebody out there. Remember to take care of yourself, guys.